So, what are the strategic objectives behind Israel's expanded ground operation, especially with the deployment of the Nahal and Golani brigades?
Definitely, it's a continuation of the military plan to divide Gaza and reoccupy it military-wise. In addition to failing any attempts to work on the two-state solution or to reach a ceasefire agreement that is final and permanent. Here it's about carrying out the plans and schemes of Israeli settlement in Gaza and also in the West Bank. In addition to claiming that continuing the military actions is to eliminate the Hamas, the Palestinian resistance. What is happening now is a genocide of the Palestinian people, and in spite of all international pressures, the far-right government led by Netanyahu and with the support of the extremist generals in Israel are continuing the war scheme to eliminate the Palestinian people and to stop any attempts to head to the two-state solution. What is happening is the complete indifference towards the always evading the two-state solution and the ceasefire agreement negotiations. There are international criticism being directed to Israel. There is a U.S. division now. In addition to also the change in the European and international stances towards the occupying state.
Sir, how might the intensification of airstrikes and joint naval ground attacks impact civilian populations in Gaza, especially in densely populated areas like Jabalia and El Maghazi?
Of course, these two areas in specific contain a very highly populated with women and children, and the operations waged on these two areas by the Israeli occupation and continuing the bombing is a message of terrorism to the rest of the population in the Gaza Strip, to continue the forced displacement scheme and the evacuation orders distributed by the occupying forces on Palestinians are only a continuation of the most recent military operation. This has been planned all along, dividing and partitioning the Gaza Strip and turning it into uninhabitable areas and expelling the populations from their own lands and not paying attention to any food supplies shortages, and this is in addition to targeting water and electricity stations and targeting infrastructure facilities. All hospitals now are out of service, and there are many instances of injuries without proper medical health care, in addition to the shortage of food supplies and the attempts to control some humanitarian aids. A few trucks were entered, and after a long time of this humanitarian aid halt, these trucks are not enough. What is happening now is a systematic genocide of civilians, especially in the regions where the evacuation orders are being distributed. These areas for the military are strategic areas to continue the scheme to partition the Gaza Strip and turning it into military governance, targeting humanitarian aids and completing the genocide of the Palestinian people and eliminating any manifestation of life in the strip to turn it into an uninhabitable place, completing the scheme of the forced displacement and relocating the Palestinian population.
So, what are the implications of targeting hostile power generators on Gaza's healthcare system and overall humanitarian situation, sir?
The humanitarian situation is catastrophic. Now, the United Nations issued a report saying that the situation is catastrophic in Gaza and targeting medical facilities, especially hospitals, in addition to targeting medical staffs and impeding any humanitarian aid access is a complete war crime. And what is happening now is that they even hinder any help to the paramedics. It's a complete war crime. It's a genocide. It's a crime against humanity by the occupying forces, and the targeting of medical facilities only aims to not help the injured due to the Israeli bombings, and therefore increasing the numbers of the killed people, including women, children, and unarmed civilians. And the confrontation of unarmed military killing civilians, it's a war crime committed by an occupying state that violates all international charters and treaties and Security Council resolutions regarding the occupying states supervising occupied territories.
How does the blocking of humanitarian aid trucks at crossings like Karam Abu Salem affect the immediate relief efforts and civilian survival in Gaza, sir, at this point?
Of course, the health and the food situations are very deteriorated at the moment, and we have all seen photos of the suffering and the massacres taking place now against the Palestinian people. A starvation war for the first time in history to be waged with this kind of cruelty and brutality against civilians and unarmed populations, most of them women and children. It's the humanitarian catastrophe, and the photos published in the media to the entire world of Gaza children, whether now seen to the European Union, to the US administration, and they are starting a campaign against Israel, and they are exerting pressures now not only behind closed doors, but now some states are calling for imposing sanctions against the occupying state and the extremist officials. And also they are considering economic embargoes and some bans in the economic and trade aspects with the occupying state of Israel. The European Union as well is waging such a campaign, and there are also pressures from the US side and non-satisfaction demonstrated by the US president regarding the behavior of the far-right government and not stopping the war. These pressures are not announced yet, but the division is there, and the interests of both states are not meeting right now, especially with the momentum that the US and the Gulf relations is witnessing at the moment. And also the stance of the Gulf states regarding not going on with the normalization deals. And we wouldn't hear much to mention the President Sisi's speech during the Baghdad summit, which restored the attention to the top priorities regarding the Palestinian cause, the unwavering Egyptian stance, in addition to the mediators' efforts, Egypt, Qatar, and all the reasonable people negotiating, either from Cairo or the consultation office regarding the humanitarian aid access and reaching a ceasefire agreement, all of these parties are exerting a lot of efforts. What is happening now that Israel is controlling a limited basic access of a few trucks to influence the organizations in charge of distributing humanitarian aid. It's non-humanitarian and in violation of all international laws and represents genocide and deliberate starvation of the Palestinian population. Egypt expressed its readiness to enter the aid, but Israel would not allow it, closing the borders, including Karma Salem crossing, through which the aid must be distributed.